Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to see you all here, and thank you for coming along. And we can definitely make the claim that we're standing room only at the Havilah AGM, which is quite an achievement for a junior company. Our PR crew up the back are going to record this technical presentation for posterity. So if I gloss over any points, you'll be able to find it somewhere on our website or a link and be able to look at it or direct your friends and colleagues to it. I just draw your attention to the cautionary statement here. Some of the things I'll be saying are definitely forward-looking, so just be aware of that. And moving on to the first slide here. So 2023, as Simon said, was an active and a productive year. The BHP Karo Orebody studies included over 8,000 metres of diamond drilling, which provided samples for metallurgical studies, mining studies, and various other logistical studies. And the overall end result was that it demonstrated a robust open pit copper deposit with good development prospects. So that was a good outcome for us. Also a good outcome was the Strategic Alliance regional exploration drilling, which totalled more than 15,000 metres, and it's in that area of the yellow on the right there on that map, showing our ELs. That was the Strategic Alliance area of interest, and we substantially upgraded 4 prospects located within 15 kilometres of Kalkaroo. At Mutooroo, you'll see the tenements there south of the highway, those grey ones. We drilled the ore body extensions. That was partially completed. We also did regional exploration and returned some very promising copper-gold-cobalt intersections at several prospects. At the Birksgate prospect, way up to the north there, we did some drilling on a conceptual geological target and discovered a potentially large stratabound mineralised zone, and also potentially some interesting graphite. We also acquired a tenement, or in process of acquiring an iron ore tenement, which is just down the main highway, and which lies very, very close to the railway line. And at this stage, we are progressing discussions regarding dealing some of our uranium assets, given the renewed market interest in uranium. So moving on to Kalkaroo, which is our flagship project. Just a summary of the current status. As we've advised in the announcement, and Simon has advised, BHP are not going to exercise the Kalkaroo call option. And the good thing for us is that the BHP study program found no fatal flaws or unexpected issues with the Kalkaroo project. And it actually highlighted the reliability of Havilah's previous resource drilling based on twinned holes, and they also confirmed our resource block model. There were some material improvements in the copper recoveries and the copper concentrate grades for the sulphide ore, and importantly some new open pit optimisations that were run and mining schedules potentially extended the open pit mine life to more than 20 years. And all in all, those inputs, the financial model that was generated confirms a robust, long-life mining project. As far as the Strategic Alliance, the regional exploration, well, as I said, we drilled several prospects within 15 kilometres of Kalkaroo, each with the scale to potentially generate a new Kalkaroo-sized discovery, and we got significant encouragement, certainly warranting a follow-up. So, notwithstanding all of the foregoing, we intend to progress with our strategy of monetising Kalkaroo, and to that end we've mandated Deutsche Bank to assist in engaging with several parties who have already expressed interest in the project. And the Strategic Alliance drilling, the regional exploration drilling, has reinforced our view that the Curnamona province presents many opportunities for discovery of additional Kalkaroo scale copper-rich multi-commodity mineral deposits. So that's the current status of Kalkaroo as it stands today. And a little bit of shameless self-advertising here, why Kalkaroo is a valuable asset. We've repeated this many times, but it is nevertheless real, especially when you consider the sovereign risk issues that certain projects are having around the world. So as I've said, we have completely independent confirmation by BHP that Kalkaroo is a financially robust and a potentially long life open pit copper gold project. That's as it stands today. And there's a wealth of very consistent, high quality technical data of PFS standard or better, which is available to any interested parties who may be studying the project with a view to purchasing it. Of course, it's excellent logistics near Broken Hill, the major regional mining centre, main transport routes, and there's also potential renewable energy sources in the area. And there are no known development obstacles identified by a number of studies. The key approval milestones are already in place, including the land ownership, granted mining leases and native title mining agreement. And the outback pastoral country where we're working presents no known environmental or cultural impediments to the development. So it's a good place to be developing a mine. And the copper mineralisation in Kalkaroo also contains various associated strategic and/or, in some cases, critical minerals, including rare earths, cobalt, molybdenum and tungsten. Not to mention gold, of course, associated with the copper. All the mining concessions are 100% owned by Havilah, with no attaching royalties or other encumbrances. South Australia is, as we know, a low sovereign risk, Tier 1 ESG location, which is attractive as compared with many other parts of the world. And the last couple of points, the considerable potential value which can be added in the exploration upside. I'll discuss that in the next few slides to demonstrate that point. The Kalkaroo itself, the Kalkaroo ML lies within the outer, well, is contained within the outer white line there. So the Karo Orebody, you'll see all the yellow dots there represent existing drill holes. There's a conceptual open pit design highlighted in brown, and it all lies within the Kalkaroo mining lease. So on the mining lease, there's considerable upside potential to expand the ore body. Kalkaroo is one of the few ore bodies I've ever worked on where the limits of it are actually limited by the extent of the drilling. So most ore bodies, when you drill them, they peter out eventually. Kalkaroo is still going strong both ends and down dip. And really the limit of the ore body was limited by our drilling, which in turn was limited by our funds at the time. So Kalkaroo is open both ends. You can see the eastern end, the last hole has economic grade intersections with up to 0.3% tungsten. The western end, where that double arrow is, still within the mining lease, is about 2 kilometres of strike there, which there's known copper mineralisation from earlier drilling, but we've never done any detailed resource drilling there. So just within that 2 kilometres alone, you know, one could potentially add another significant amount of ore to the Kalkaroo ore body. And then Kalkaroo is plunging down to the north at about 45 degrees. That's sort of up this slide, and the down dip extends just below 200 metres have virtually been undrilled. So plenty of scope down dip. And then there's mineralisation up in the hanging wall. We've actually got economic hits up in the hanging wall, but we've never ever followed them up. One of those is identified there on that picture. And then further off to the west, outside the ML, is the Homestead prospect, which is basically a faulted, slightly orientated repetition of the western end of the Kalkaroo ore body. It's just been broken off and displaced a bit, but we've discovered similar mineralisation. Our strategic alliance drilling there resulted in quite a few holes, and eventually towards the end we started hitting the prospective horizon, which we call K2, and started getting some mineralisation. So again, that warrants follow-up, but you can see the long strike of that Homestead prospect means that again we could get quite a sizable, potentially sizable ore body sitting in there. We have enough space, and right next door to Kalkaroo. But the particular area that the study program that BHP were working on is actually within that white outer boundary, the ML, and includes the Kalkaroo ore body and nothing outside that. So moving on to the second major upside. This is outside the Kalkaroo mining lease. This is an aeromagnetic image. There's very little outcrop in this area. So the aeromagnetics gives us a very good, almost like an X-ray view of what the bedrock formations are doing, how they're folded around, how they're faulted. And you don't need to be a geologist to see all sorts of fold patterns and circular patterns there, all of which are geologically meaningful. So just above centre there you can see the Kalkaroo deposit, which is on the northern end of the Kalkaroo Dome, South Dome, with a big fault zone running through it. And the grid squares there, the grid blocks, are about 5 kilometres. So that gives you an idea of the scale. So when we started out with the Strategic Alliance drilling, we decided to look at our best prospects that were within 15 kilometres of Kalkaroo. And the reason for that is so that it was in easy trucking distance, minimal trucking cost if we found more ore in an outlying area. And we drilled a number of prospects, 4 of them, which are named here, all turned up very good, very encouraging results, and certainly worthwhile following up. Now we've made announcements about these, the exploration results to the ASX, and on this slide we actually have the link to the ASX announcement. So if you want to know more details about each of those prospects, the drilling results we got, refer to those ASX announcements. All the information's there. But suffice it to say, for today's purpose, that each of these prospects in their own way generated some good results, either copper, gold, rare earths, uranium. And I thought I'd illustrate that by just referring to a couple. In the next couple of slides, just note where Deep Well is there, south of Kalkaroo. I'm going to mention that. And also another prospect a little bit further south called Johnson Dam. So I'll just give you an idea of how we went about the exploration and why we're excited about the prospects. So first of all, Deep Well. It's been explored. There's been about 4 different companies have drilled out there, not that many holes, and that includes Havilah actually. So you'll see those green dots, usually with the yellow under them. They were very shallow holes that were drilled by Newcrest many years ago, and the yellow signifies quite anomalous copper. Now you'll see there's an 800 metre scale bar there on the right, and that gives you an idea of the scale of the area. We're not talking about 100 metres here, we're talking about 3 or 4 kilometres length, and over that area there's anomalous copper everywhere from the pre-existing drilling. So that makes it, to start with, a very interesting area. Then the second thing is that there is very strong magnetic anomalies there, marked by the pink lines. There's a very strong magnetic ridge, which is usually indicative of something interesting out there in that part of the world. And the other thing is that MIM, in their exploration, again back in the 2000s, early 2000s, they did IP. Now IP stands for Induced Potential Geophysics. And what it does, it feeds electric current into the ground, and if there's a conductor there, you get a response. And without knowing any more, all we have to know is that anything red on those profiles, the 4 profiles you can see stepping across that picture, anything red is basically conductive, and something conductive could actually be sulfide mineralisation or some sort of metallic mineral. So basically anything red there is of potential interest, especially where it has a long strike length and where it's very persistent. So with the Strategic Alliance, we drilled about 7 holes there, and pretty well all of them hit very interesting copper mineralisation with or without gold and cobalt. And so we established that over the area length we drilled that there was copper mineralisation. Importantly, it was the best copper mineralisation ever been intersected out there. And you'll notice in the cross section down on the bottom left hand side there, you can see the red zone, the conductive zone. And you'll notice that one of our drill holes, KKRC639, which was one of our better holes, it got significant moly and copper. It was drilled to about 200 metres depth, but it just stopped shy of that red feature. So although with all the drilling we've done out there, we still don't know what the cause of that is, other than that it's conductive, other than that we've got mineralisation above it. And it is a very, very, very interesting potential target for us, because that could be the feeder zone to the copper mineralisation we're seeing much shallower. So that's some unfinished business there. That could be very significant, what's causing that conductive zone. But certainly what we're getting shallow, a lot of copper, is of interest in its own right. The other prospect, which is a bit further south, is Johnson Dam. Now this is a completely new prospect, it had never been drilled. One of our geologists, who's actually in the audience here today, Travis Just, he actually first mapped this, although he mightn't like me mentioning the year, but back in the late 80s, he mapped this prospect. There's a Gossan there, an ironstone, which is a surface expression of sulphides. He sampled it, got some quite anomalous copper, recommended that it should be drilled. And ensuing 40 odd years, we were the first to drill it earlier this year. And I guess you could say it was worth the wait, because we immediately, on our drill section lines, we hit interesting grades of copper, cobalt, very high rare earths, but interesting also uranium. Quite significant uranium and very persistent on a couple of drill sections. So that 6 metres are 3.3 pounds per tonne U308. If you do the calculations, that's equivalent to about 5% copper. So it's quite an economically valuable intersection. Now, we got those type of intersections in 6 holes on 2 drill section lines, and this feature has at least a 3 or 4 kilometre strike. So again, standing start results, very, very encouraging, significant copper and other metals, multi-commodity, but with a lot of untested potential. So again, we're very keen to go back out and work there. It's close to Kalkaroo, and it actually outcrops at the surface, so there's no overburden, unlike at Kalkaroo. So very interesting prospect. Just moving on now to another prospect. It wasn't part of the Strategic Alliance area of interest. It's way up to the north, and we call it Birksgate. It was actually explored by MMG in a joint venture with us back in 2011, 2014. And you'll see on the picture on the right there, there's an MMG DDH diamond drill hole from 2014, which got nearly 11 metres of economic grade copper and gold, plus some moly. And you'll see where the arrow's pointing there. It was intersected at depth. There's actually 4 holes hit this zone, and it was quite consistent mineralisation. So based on our interpretation of the geophysics and geology as we understood it, we felt that this particular horizon might dip down and form a great big syncline and come up the other side, sort of 1.5 kilometres to the east, and come near the surface. So that was our theory, our hypothesis. We went out and drilled those 3 holes there in yellow with the white arrows going to them, and sure enough we hit the mineralised horizon scan unit exactly where we predicted, and the nitons certainly indicate some indication of mineralisation. We're still waiting the assay results from the lab for that, So that's a very, very interesting prospect. If that skarn zone, that red there on that picture, is actually mineralised, then there's potential for a very large target there, copper-gold mineralisation, plus maybe moly as well. So that was an interesting prospect where we managed to prove the concept, and the funds that were provided to us to Havilah for its own work under the BHP Alliance, that helped us fund that exploration, although it's not in the Alliance. The other thing we did, you'll notice those two coloured profiles running across the picture. They are airborne electromagnetic survey lines. And so what happens, a plane flies across the country, in this case on lines 2.5 kilometres apart, and it feeds electromagnetic signal into the earth, and if there are metallic minerals there or sulfides or anything conductive, it will distort that signal, which is reflected or retransmitted at least, and then picked up, and those distortions in the signal, which are caused by a conductive zone, will be reflected in the results. And it's a lot of complicated manipulation to get the end, interpret the signals, but the end result is quite a simple picture like we have here, these two profiles. And again, as before, red equals interest, because wherever you have a red zone, you'll see them on this those two profiles, you have a more conductive material, which, as I said, could be metals, could be sulfide, or something else. So that anomaly you'll see on that northern profile line, there's quite a significant red zone there, which is of interest to us, and we couldn't help wire out there with the rig, drill a hole and find out what it was, because of course it could always have been sulfides. As it turned out, it was graphite, and we hit in that particular hole there, right in the middle, it's shown yellow, 178 metres of basic graphitic peelite or graphitic shale, metamorpho shale, and it was very black, very sooty, very graphitic, and so we did some preliminary assays, and they come back with quite significant graphite, and now we've assayed the whole hole, and we've only just got the results, so we're just interpreting that, but that's definitely a graphite occurrence. Whether it's economic, what it leads to, who knows, but just an interesting aside, and I guess an object lesson in exploration, that always have your eyes and ears open for other possibilities. So we tested that just as a bit of a wild card, and it turned up with something very interesting. Interestingly enough, now we understand what that airborne EM anomaly is caused by, namely graphite, conductive graphite. We see many similar anomalies further down towards Kalkaroo. So we may well, when we're going past one day, drill some of those others, and who knows, we might end up with a decent graphite deposit. But that's speculation, definitely speculation at this stage. Moving on now, going south of the main highway to our Mutooroo area. Now Mutooroo is our other main copper deposit, copper resource we have. We did quite a bit of work this year, apart from the drilling around the place, on reinterpreting the airborne EM. There's that geophysical method again, the electromagnetic data that was generated by an aerial survey. And we actually pulled the anomalies to bits and tried to interpret them. Got a consultant to do that. And something really interesting turned up over Mutooroo, the Mutooroo ore body. So on the picture on the right, the colours are actually the airborne EM signal, and again, red or pink, anything warm is of interest because it's a conductive zone. And all the blue dots there are where we've done our drilling. So this is a bird's eye view. This is assuming you're 2,000 metres up there and you're looking straight down. That's where the drill hole collars are, all those blue dots. That's where the drill holes have gone in. And you can see that it's sitting right on top of this airborne EM anomaly. Now if you look at the long section, onto the left there, you'll see one end it says A and the other end it says B. And if you look on the picture on the right, you'll see A and B. So what the section is, it's called a long section. So it's actually not a cross section, it's actually a section along the mineralised zone, the zone where we've drilled. So all those blue dots you can see on the picture on the right, where they actually intersect the mineralised zone, is where the red dots are on the long section. That sounds a bit complicated, but basically if you look at that long section there on the left, you can see there's a lot of red dots up the B end, where all the blue dots are concentrated on that plan view. And that's where our Mutooroo ore body is, the resource. That's where our 12.5 million tonnes of 1.53 copper plus cobalt plus gold sits. And you can see we've identified there on that long section inferred resource, indicated and measured. And of course the measured, there's a lot of drill holes there, so that's why it's a measured resource, because we're confident. So that's all understandable, because you'll see on the picture on the right that the most intense contours of the airborne EM anomaly are sitting right above that zone. So it's absolutely no doubt that the airborne EM is picking up that sulphide ore body that constitutes Mutooroo, is picking up that 12.5 million tonnes, which is great because it shows the method works, which we already knew. But the thing that emerged is, you'll notice about 500 metres to the north, where those couple of yellow stars are, we have another anomaly peak. Now that, you'll see from the lack of blue dots, has certainly not been drilled at all densely, only very near the surface. And if you go back to our long section again, look inside that red dotted oval shape there, ellipse shape, where I've got indicated new target area, you'll see that we interpret that conductive zone to be inside that red ellipse. And there's precious little drilling, certainly no Havilah drilling. Those DDMM holes, which I've indicated the results just above, they're all drilled back in the late 60s, believe it or not, by Broken Hill South, who were a mining company at Broken Hill at the time. And they got some quite good results. If you look at those results for the holes there, they're nice, very nice results. And but further north into that red zone, it just hasn't been drilled. We don't have any information. But we think those holes are actually starting to hit the edge of the airborne EM anomaly. So that zone is a prime target area for us to expand the Mutooroo resource. So that orange lined zone, if we do drilling within that red ellipse zone, we may well find more extensions of the Mutooroo ore body. We may well find in fact we would expect to, based on the airborne EM, expect to find more sulphide mineralisation in there in that hollow area, which would be great, because that would add quite substantially, potentially, to our current Mutooroo known resource. So that was a very interesting aside. Just shows that there's still quite a bit of upside at Mutooroo to expand the resource. We also did exploration, as at Kalkaroo. We did exploration in the surrounding area, the extensive exploration licenses we got. We drilled some of our favourite prospects, which we'd identified over the last few years. And one of them was Mingarry Mine. And if you have time, refer back to the original map at the beginning, because that shows where Mingarry Mine is. But it's about 25 kilometres or so as the crow flies from Mutooroo, and there's some old workings there. And Mutooroo had drilled that previously and got some quite nice, couple of nice intersections. So we followed up and did some more drilling and got potentially economic grades of copper and gold over at least 1 kilometre of strike, which we're very encouraged by. And you can see those results on the map on the right there. Quite significant copper and gold grades, 30 metres of 0.64 copper and 0.43 gold at 89 metres. And this material actually outcrops at the surface, so that's good, there's no overburden. And you'll see the section there just to the left, you can see it's one of the holes that we drilled through. It's a nice wide intersection, probably 30 odd metres true width. Then one of the other prospects which we liked, which we did more drilling, was Coburn. That was a completely new discovery over a year ago. We first drilled it, and we immediately got some quite nice copper-cobalt intersections. The Gosson outcrop, a bit like Johnson's Dam, it actually outcropped the surface, never been drilled, and so it was great that we drilled underneath it and got sulphides. This year we come back and drilled some more holes, and we got probably our best intersection yet, 70 odd metres, which is a significant width when you pace out 70 metres on the ground. If it has a true width of 50 or so metres, that's still a pretty wide zone to be running 0.33 gold, cobalt and copper, and the copper equivalent's about 0.6%. So that's pretty interesting, and considering it's only a few kilometres from Mutooroo. So we're very excited by this because these are potentially additional sources of ore for a development at Mutooroo. So if we can expand the resource at Mutooroo, we get more ore there. If we can find economic grades, economic mineable zones of mineralisation, copper, gold, cobalt, in other outlying prospects, well, that just adds more to Mutooroo. And so it starts to become quite a substantial resource base. Changing the subject completely now, going back to our iron ore. As you know, we have some quite significant iron ore assets, and we acquired another one during the year, or are still in process of the tenement being transferred as we speak. It's called McDonald Hill, and one of its main attributes, apart from the fact that almost the whole area is underlain by Braemar iron formation over quite a big area. You see that scale bar, 10 kilometres, gives you an idea of the scale. It's only a stone's throw from the Barrier Highway and the Transcontinental Railway. So if you look at the picture there on the right, just off to the corner of the tenement, there is that orangey brown line is actually the main highway. So you couldn't get much better logistics than that, and that's about 280 kilometres from Port Augusta down the railway line. Now the reason we picked this up is not that we don't have enough iron ore potential resources, but because of the nature of this, the iron ore here is steeply dipping. It's folded. You can see all the wiggly lines there on the image, that Google image, and you can see there's darker bands in it. Those darker bands correspond to higher grade iron ore. It's sitting on its end because it's been folded, it outcrops, it actually forms hills. And so it presents great possibilities if we can find higher grade zones in there, which we know do exist from previous sampling. Then it's possible that we could find reasonable tonnages of potentially economic grade iron ore, which could be shipped down to the port for beneficiation, or even maybe, with any luck, direct shipping. So the possibility of having an easy win in terms of finding economic bodies of iron ore in this folded Braemar iron formation is what really attracted us to this prospect, plus the logistics. If I move on now to, I guess, our last asset, mineral asset, and that's uranium. And excuse me a minute. So last year, well, the year before actually, you'll recall we were working on the New Energy Resources IPO, basically IPOing all our sand-hosted uranium assets in the area. And because of the wobbles in the market, that never happened. But the uranium assets remain. In the meantime, our neighbours, Boss Energy, have been very diligently moving the Honeymoon project forward to the point they're just starting production now. And they have timed their run absolutely perfectly in terms of increasing uranium price. So over the last couple of years, it's tripled in price. And uranium now is becoming a bit of a buzz commodity because that COP28 conference that has just finished, just about all the developed nations except Australia committed, or at least said, they were going to make great strides in moving the uranium power generation, nuclear power generation forward as a replacement for coal and gas. And notably Australia was the only exception, which I think you could say was a bit embarrassing for us considering how much uranium we've got here. But that aside, the Paleo Channel, which hosts the uranium deposit, the Honeymoon uranium deposit, is shown there in that army green colour, and Boss have a resource called Jason's right next to our EL boundary. Our EL continues to the north of that, and you'll see that the Uramba Paleo Channel snakes its way through the centre of our tenements, and we have the Oban resource just up the north. So it's quite a significant prospective area. We know that there's uranium in the Uramba Paleo Channel just inside our exploration licences from our previous drilling, and so that Uramba Channel Oban resource area is very prospective, very significant, and we've been talking to a group who may take that over, and under some sort of deal that allows us to get some return. We have various other uranium areas which are just indicated on this map. For example, we have the tenements surrounding the old Radium Hill mine, the iconic Radium Hill mine. The old mining area is on a exclusion zone, but we certainly have the strike extensions. Up to the north, Prospect Hill area is on the edge of the Flinders Ranges, where there's highly radioactive granites, uranium-rich granites, and that's actually the same setting as Beverley and 4 Mile. That's a very interesting area for that type of deposit. And then going back down to our main area of tenements there to the west of the Uramba Paleo Channel, we have an area, the Billaroo Paleo Channel, which hosts the Gould's Dam deposit. Some of that goes through our area. We have another Paleo Channel called Namba Paleo Channel, and we're actually interested to explore that ourselves, especially the headwaters, because that's the Birksgate area where we've actually hit some significant primary uranium in the bedrock. So some of these other areas, other than the Namba Paleo Channel, we may also look to vend into other vehicles and try and monetise them. So that's how we propose to actually get some value in our uranium assets. So final slide, which is really, I guess, the key one, is what are our key objectives for 2024? And that needs to be considered against the background of the fact that we're going into 2024 with excellent exposure to commodities that have a really good outlook, future outlook, namely copper, gold, uranium and iron ore. And that means it's a great time to exploring for copper and gold and to be dealing on projects with those metals in them. If for no other reason that the prices for both copper and gold are at near record levels in Australian dollar terms, nominal copper gold prices. And as I said, uranium is also looking pretty attractive. So with those tailwinds, our key objectives, as we've said a number of times today, is to seek to monetise the Kalkaroo copper-gold-cobalt project in the light of BHP deciding not to proceed. And Deutsche Bank have been engaged to manage that sales process, and already there's quite a bit of interest being shown. The second thing is we want to seek a joint venture partner to assist us with the Mutooroo PFS funding. As I showed in the picture, there's quite a bit of drilling to be done at depth to see if that airborne EM anomaly does yield increased sulphide resource, which will need drilling out to add to our resource base. That's quite expensive. And then of course there's the rest of the PFS work and ultimately going through to project development. So we would love to have a good partner helping us on that to assist with the financing. Third main objective is something which we'd been wanting to do for the last 2 years, to be honest. It's a carryover from 2023, and that's to carry out some limited resource drilling and commencement of a mining scoping study on the western part of the Grants Basin iron ore deposit. Now, we know it's a potentially a very large deposit, but we need to take it to the next level, and Richard and his mining engineering team are very keen to do a mining scoping study to demonstrate that, and we geologists have to do some resource drilling there to give them the data. So we plan to do that this year, use some of our funds. Also, that McDonald Hill iron ore prospect, we want to investigate the potential of that, and that's basically mapping, sampling initially, but we may end up doing some drilling if it's promising, with a view to trying to fast track any good iron ore deposits we find there. And as I've just mentioned, we are seeking to monetise certain of our uranium assets, not all of them, but certain of them. And the ones that we won't is the sand-hosted uranium in the Namba Paleo channel, where we think there's very good potential, and also the associated hard rock uranium and copper-gold mineralisation, which is actually in the headwaters of the Namba Paleo channel. That's the Birksgate prospect that I've described, and possibly others. So you'll note that in this we haven't mentioned doing any follow-up drilling on some of those outlying prospects around Kalkaroo and Mutooroo during at least the first half of 2024, and that's mainly because it's dependent on the availability of funds. If we have funds, if the sale eventuates of Kalkaroo, then of course we'll go out and get busy following up on those really promising prospects. If not, well, we'll do this other work, and we'll do it when we are suitably funded. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of my technical presentation. I hope it's been enlightening, and the support for all I've said here is in this JORC ore reserve and resource table, which is published in our annual report. Thank you again.